My pal Mike Johnson, former Alabama All-American, team captain, 2009 national champion, 5 years with the Atlanta Falcons, now an SEC football analyst, and we're going to talk some football for the next couple of segments. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing good, man. Good to be back on with you, and I absolutely agree, and will second that notion to remember what this weekend's all about as everybody's heading out and dipping their toes in the water. It's Memorial Day for a reason, so I appreciate you saying that.
Oh, absolutely, and we appreciate you being on with us because we've been talking a lot of softball. It's a big deal here in Tuscaloosa, but I had a couple people this week say, talk a little football, so that's what we're going to do. Let's start with Alabama's schedule. I hate to use the term heat because I don't think that's fair, but I do think there has been a lot of fan unrest. The novelty of the neutral site season opener has worn off a little bit. It was awesome back in 2008 when Saban got here and you guys played Clemson and kind of started that run. But lately fans have been yearning for home and homes, wanting more big games in Bryant-Denny Stadium. We've seen the future schedule just start to get loaded with big names, and it looks good. And then yesterday, a scheduling decision that I really like, Mike, and I want to get your response. You don't get teams to do 2-for-1s very much anymore, regardless of whether they're Power 5 or not. But I think this opportunity to play South Florida, to kick it off down in Tampa at Raymond James Stadium, big recruiting area for Alabama, and then to have them come back twice to Tuscaloosa, I think this is a win-win for both programs. I like this series. What about you?
Oh, listen, I've got a lot of background on this series personally because, listen, as a lot of people know that I've talked to over the years, my best friend from high school actually was an All-American. So on the same All-American teams I was in college. George Selvey, he went to South Florida, and he and I have already been barking back and forth about this South Florida series. Listen, I remember the last team play. I want to say it was 2003.
It was Mike Shula's first game.
Yeah, it was Mike Shula's first game. It's correct. And I actually, I was watching the game. I had no ties to Alabama, and one of my old high school teammates, that was a couple of years older than me, was actually playing for South Florida. And I remember actively cheering for South Florida on the television in Bryant-Denny Stadium against Mike Shula. I had not met Mike Shula and didn't have a scholarship offer or anything at that point. So I agree with you. I think it's a win-win, both scenarios. When you talk about getting down to Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, which, Alabama has some history at a couple of years ago playing Clemson down there, and, being able to take part in that community, which is really a great football community they built down in South Florida. Anybody that remembers the run they had back when I was in college, 2007, that crazy year, 2007, South Florida beat Auburn that year and actually got up to number 2. So they've got a recently proud history, and I agree with you. I think that I don't want to say people got tired of the neutral site openers. I just think it became oversaturation. It was cool when you had, Alabama against Florida State and Jacksonville in 2007, and then Alabama against Clemson in 2008, then Virginia Tech, and then it started happening in Houston, it started happening in Dallas, it started happening in Orlando, and everywhere you look, you've got neutral site openers now, with these non-conference games. So I think getting back to the roots of college football, which is home-and-home games and scheduling the way that Greg Byrne has been able to do, has been nice on the outlook of Alabama football. I hope looking 10 years down the road that we're still a dominant football program when we get to some of these games.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to work out nicely for the home, the 2-1 home-and-home with South Florida, and I think a lot of people will be excited to make that trip to South Florida. Indeed.
USF Alabama in Tampa 2023. USF will return to Tuscaloosa in 2024 and then wrap up the series in 2026. Okay, let's get to this story that has been talked about a lot this week. I didn't talk about it, Mike, until yesterday when I had so many people bugging me about it, and I said, all right, I'll address it. And I understand why Lindy's does it. I mean, this is a competitive business that we're in media, and you're trying to get people to read you and listen to you and watch you and all the different things. I don't know how you feel about it. As a former player, I got a good guess. I hate the anonymous coach stuff. It's even in my personal life. Well, so-and-so said. Well, who's so-and-so? Or they said this. Who's they? If you don't have a name to put to it, I don't have time to worry about it. If somebody said something about me, if you don't know who it is or you can't tell me who it is, don't waste my time with it. And I'm kind of like this with this anonymous coach crap. But you know the story. Let's start with what was said about Alabama by an anonymous coach. First of all, they're anonymous, so they don't want to attach their name to it. Secondly, I got a feeling that any high-ranking coach, whether it be a coordinator or certainly a head coach or maybe even a position coach, it's not going to participate in this. My guess is it's a lower-level assistant coach or an analyst or somebody like that. But anyway, here's the quote. Let's start with Tua. I think Tua needs to humble himself. I think he did some bad things in the bowl game that cost the team because he put himself ahead of the team. He needs to understand Alabama won national championships by playing great defense and special teams and not beating itself. In the national championship game, the quarterback play was atrocious, and some would say the play calling too. All right, I don't think it was atrocious. It wasn't his best game. I've never thought of him as anything but humble. And now the play calling, I might agree with. But just your reaction to those comments and then the fact that no name is attached to it.
Yeah, it's definitely a head scratcher. And listen, I think with every one of these comments, and I try to be as open as I can with a lot of these things because, like you, I understand the need, especially in sports media these days where there's a layoff, every other day. I understand the need to kind of throw comments out there like this and see what sticks. And it probably did come from an assistant coach. Now, where did the comment come from and what, coaching staff was he on and how high level is this guy? I mean, who knows? But I think, listen, I don't think it has anything to do with humility. I don't think that Tua steps out there and goes, well, I'm the best player in Alabama history. I'm going to throw the ball around. I don't think it has anything to do with that. So I think that's definitely an unfair cheap shot. Now, with all that being said and all that being put to the background and me saying that I think Tua is a great kid and a great guy and a great quarterback, I think there is some level of truth to it where, the same sort of recipe for Alabama's national title runs has to start poking itself out at some point. You have to start understanding, hey, maybe I should get the ball out of my hands instead of, a spin move in the backfield. Maybe I can't get away from Clemson's defensive line. Maybe I can't get away from this defensive line. Maybe I need to get it out of my hands, allow the running backs to make some moves in the flats, maybe mix in some more screen plays, talking about the play calling. And I think there is some level of truth to that where you say, hey, listen, I don't have to win this game with my left arm. I can allow the other five-star players around me to do some of these things and take some of it off my back. I think there's some level of truth to that. But all in all, I'm sure we'll get to the defensive comments here in a minute. But all in all, I just it is what it is. It's about as relevant as somebody off the street saying something. If you're going to say it's anonymous, hey, listen, you can walk up to anybody on the sidewalk in Athens, Georgia, or Clemson, South Carolina, and say, hey, what do you think about Alabama? And you probably get some of the same responses. And that's about how much it means to me to see it come in through the magazine and have somebody put anonymous next to it.
All right, here's the quote on the defense from the same coach. They've got holes in the defense. I can see them losing 2 to 3 games. They lost Mack Wilson. They're missing guys up front. Raekwon Davis didn't play that well last year. Well, first of all, Alabama could lose 2 or 3 games. It's shocking that they haven't done that really in the regular season since 2010. It can happen to any team. But defensively, Alabama was still good last year. I think they get a bad rap because of what happened after being up 28-0 against Oklahoma, then, of course, in the national championship game. But Alabama still was pretty good on defense last year. And as you said, maybe the formula on offense changed a little bit. And even when Alabama was scoring a lot of points, they were going out there a lot. Alabama scores in 2 plays, they're back out there. But I do think there are some concerns about the defense. But at the same time, I don't know that losing Mack Wilson is that big a hit, even though he's talented. And I expect Raekwon Davis to have a bounce-back year. And I think this defense, with some of these coaches that they have brought in, is going to be improved, in my opinion.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt, what's expected of Raekwon, and you love the fact that he's coming back and will be back, and, he's expected out there. It blows my mind that there was no mention of Quinn Williams in that. If you're going to talk about pieces missing and reasons why this defense might not be as good, I would think that, a top 5 draft pick in the NFL might have a lot to do with it. But I'm kind of with you on Mack Wilson, where, listen, I like Mack Wilson. I got a chance to see him over 8-day weekend. Great guy, seemed to be a great player, great leader. But I don't know if that's the one reason for me, Gary, that you look at it and go, boy, they're really going to be missing him. I think Mack was a nice player, but I don't know that Mack ever got as good as a lot of people kind of expected him to in his time in Alabama. And to me, it was less of an athletic thing. There's no question about Mack being an athlete and having speed and being able to make tackles. But too many times when you look at, the rest of Alabama's linebackers over the course of Nick Saban's tenure, they're so good at diagnosing, and they're so good at playing the cerebral game and making the checks and making sure they understand what's coming at them. To me, last year, it seemed like there was a lot of reaction. It seemed like there was a lot of being, off balance and being taken off guard, and really some teams just taking advantage of the linebacking core. So, listen, I'm not saying that Mac's not a nice piece, and I think he had a good career and deserves, all the acclaim for that. But I don't think that's the one reason Alabama's going to have holes on their defense. I think there's other reasons. You worry about the depth back in the secondary. You worry about the depth along the defensive line. You're going to have some pressure mixed in there. But, just listen, when I look at this defense, I think they've got playmakers. I think they've got players. I think they've got speed. I think they've got length. Here's the problem I have with it. Where are these 3 losses coming from, Gary? That's when I looked at it, I thought, that's fine and dandy. Maybe Alabama's defense is not as good as they were, 3 or 4 years ago. But where are the 2 or 3 losses going to come from? That's the head scratch for me. I think if you're saying that, you're saying they lose to LSU. You're probably saying they lose to Auburn and maybe a team like Texas A&M. And I have a hard time with that. I don't see that happening, especially not with the offensive pieces that they'll be able to put out on the field. So, listen, like I said a minute ago, it's about as good as asking somebody off the street what they think, and that's what you're going to get when you have anonymous coaches talking about it.
All right, final quote on Alabama from this coach in regards to Nick Saban. Nick Saban went 14-0, obviously, before facing Clemson, and was miserable because of all the staff changes, and nobody knew how to do it the Alabama way. Now it's going to be the Steve Sarkisian experiment. Can he score points? He is smart, and the kids love him. Okay, I don't know if he was miserable or not. I don't know if you know that. I do know that was the staff he put together. It was a different type of staff, but they did get to 14-0. Again, that's a bold statement from a guy who doesn't coach at Alabama. I have to think he believes he's got some insight. Do you think Nick Saban was miserable?
I don't think Nick Saban was miserable. I think that Nick Saban is I think he likes things done a certain way. And when they're not being done a certain way, then yes, I think he's a little bit, different of a personality. I think that it kind of skews things differently when he's not having the Saban way done, and he's getting, kind of some I don't know, he's catching some backfire in terms of some of the hires and some of the ways some of the guys are doing things. And I'm like you, listen, I don't know if Nick was unhappy or if he was unhappy 2 years ago or if he's unhappy now. But I do know that, talking to people around the program, that he is a lot more excited about the staff that he has together right now and some of the pieces he has in place. So, listen, when you talk about 2 years ago and the staff and the Kuligowskis of the world and some of the, the pieces he had to put together, I definitely think there was some unhappiness around Nick Saban about the way some of those guys gelled together and about some of the answers he was getting on a week-to-week basis in terms of game planning. So, listen, who knows? I think that he's definitely in a better place now, and I think the football program's in a better place now. And, all of us just have to kind of sit back and watch it and see how it pans out. And he's the guy really putting his tools to use. But I think Nick Saban's fine. I think Nick Saban's in a good spot. I think he has been cool, calm, and collected more so than ever here in the last year or so, and I think he'll continue down that path.
Talking SEC football, covered Alabama with all the anonymous coach quotes. Georgia wasn't spared either, Mike, and this guy was really hard on Kirby Smart. Sounds a little personal to me. Here's the quote. After Texas beat the hell out of Georgia in the bowl game, Kirby Smart had to take a big look in the mirror. He hangs his hat on defense, and Texas shredded his defense. Oklahoma did the same thing 2 years ago. That gives people an idea how to move the football in Georgia's defense. Texas ran it right up their butt. Oklahoma beat them on the perimeter, and you can't say Georgia ain't got players. This is from a anonymous rival SEC coach. Seems a little bit harsh to me. Georgia's probably accomplished a lot more the last couple of years than this guy's team, I'm guessing.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt about it. And I think, when you look at it and you look at what Kirby Smart is, and I think, listen, there's some truth to it. The Kirby Smart bases, his entire team. Really, his team in Georgia right now are built a lot like Alabama has been built back in 2011, 2012. It's very A.J. McCarron-era style of football. I mean, there's 5-star linemen across their offensive line. They've got speed and talent coming into their defense. But, Gary, I've been saying it since I was in college that really these bowl games and these bowl games that don't mean much, they're one-off games to me. You don't point at the bowl game and say, oh, man, they got exposed. No, it's just not how it works. You had a coach in a program in Texas that had a lot more to gain by winning this game than Georgia did. And so they go out there and, they lay it on Georgia, and it's kind of a one-off game for me. I don't really put a lot of thought into it. I have coaching-wise, I have a lot of respect for Kirby Smart and his ability to recruit and his ability to get things done. And I think Georgia's still on an upward trajectory. Now, that could change, with what you see coming out of Georgia right now. And they have to win with the talent they're getting in. I think there is a little bit of a play clock that's kind of counting down on what Kirby Smart's doing at Georgia. And I think as long as you're continuing that upward trend and you're playing in SEC title games and doing some of the things they're doing, I think that you're going to be good. Now, my question is, if this becomes Jake Fromm's last year, what are you getting with the kid that, was a true freshman this year? And what really will you have moving forward when some of these, linemen, some of these other guys continue to mature? But I still think Georgia's on an upward trajectory. I think there are some cheap shots mixed in there with the whole anonymous coaching thing. And I would guess, just like you said, that, Kirby Smart's program's probably won a few more games than this coach. I don't want to point to the program down in Gainesville as one of the possible anonymous coaches going on, but I know that Dan Mullen and his staff have liked to take shots at Kirby Smart and this Georgia program. I think Kirby Smart and Georgia will be fine. I think that their trajectory will continue, and they're going to win 10-plus games again this season. But can they get it done in crunch time, and can Kirby Smart coach his way to a championship? That does remain to be seen, so we'll see how that plays out.
All right, here's another quote on Georgia, and then we'll move on our last couple of minutes. And this one now I do kind of agree with. And you and I have talked about this before. Georgia can't backslide, said another anonymous opposing coach in the conference. Those fans think they're going to win the national championship every year. That might be Georgia's biggest problem, is the expectations for a team that hasn't won a national championship since 1980. Why they think they're going to win the national championship every year. Just win one. Just win one. But understand that it's hard, and you haven't done it in 39 years. I think those fans maybe have unrealistic expectations. Not that Georgia can't win another one, but get one in your pocket before you just expect your coach to go out and win it every year. That's what happened to Rick. He didn't meet the expectations, and I'm telling you something. This, Mike, living there. Let Kirby go another year or two without one, and they're going to turn up the heat on him in a hurry.
Well, and that's the thing to me, and that's why I keep using the word trajectory. Their trajectory continues to be good because they're winning football games, winning big football games. They've been really close the last couple of years to beating Alabama. They were overtime away from winning a national title 2 years ago, and they're recruiting at an extremely high level. So when you add all those things together, you do get high expectations from the fans. But you know as well as I do that, and the saying always goes around the SEC that, Georgia fans have the expectation of Alabama fans with the trophy case of Vanderbilt. That's just the nature of the beast. And Kirby Smart understands that more than anybody. Listen, I think that his understanding of the fan base and the fan base's understanding of him goes a lot further because he is an alumni of Georgia. And I think that has a lot to do with the situation. But I do agree that, hey, listen, maybe go this year without an SEC title game. Maybe Florida sneaks in there and gets you, or some of the other teams from the East. Go another year without, an appearance or winning a championship. And then you do start, in my opinion, it's not so much the fan base turning on Kirby. To me, it's Kirby maybe looking at some of the, things he's dealing with in the SEC, and then maybe an NFL offer comes along. And then maybe Kirby starts going, well, maybe I should start looking at the NFL. Maybe it is a lot tougher to get this done on a year-in, year-out basis. Do I want to continue to recruit at the high level and put the man hours in that I am, and continue to do these things when I've got kids, I've got a family, I've got a lot of those things. So that's the danger to me. To me, the danger is not the backslide. I don't, Florida, I think, had some improvement last year, but I don't know where your competition's coming from in the East, I guess, is my deal. So we'll see what happens. Listen, I think Georgia fans should have high expectations this year. They've got a lot of talent. They've got a returning very, very good quarterback and a very good offensive line. So we'll see what happens. I think Kirby Smart's going to have to really grind to get his team back to where they need to be, but he's definitely got the pieces in place to be able to get it done.
All right, finally, we only got about a minute, Mike, but a lot of love for Auburn I'm reading. I don't understand necessarily where it comes from, other than this is the schedule year where they get Georgia and Alabama at home. And I know they've got some pieces, but they're going to start a freshman quarterback, whether it's Gatewood, a redshirt freshman, or Nix, a true freshman. They didn't have much of a running game last year. Where is all this Auburn love coming from as a team that could upset the apple cart and get past Alabama and make it to Atlanta?
Well, listen, Gary, and I know we don't have much time, but here's the thing, and you know where my heart lies. It's on the offensive line. If you're going to have a good team, you have to have pieces on the offensive line. Auburn just doesn't have them. They just have not recruited well along the offensive line, and they have not developed well along the offensive line. And for that reason, I'll be asking questions. Who's the quarterback? Who's going to block for the quarterback? And really, where are all these pieces going to come from on defense you expect to be very good? I think that there's a lot of people overreaching on what they're expecting from Auburn this year. I don't think there's any doubt about it in my mind.
All right, man, I wish we could do another 30 minutes. Time just flies when you're on the program. You are awesome at breaking this down, and maybe we can catch up again next week. Thank you, Mike.
I always appreciate it, Gary. Thanks.